All right, we'll call the December Environmental Commission meeting to order. Can we have roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Chair Horn.
Here.
Vice Chair is open. Secretary is open. Alderman Craig.
Here.
Commissioner Serafin.
Here.
Commissioner Sharma.
Here.
We do have a quorum, and I am here.
Next, we'll do a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next, we can have citizen comment period. There is no one present, so we will open and close at 7:01. Approval of minutes. Our last meeting was July. Hopefully folks have reviewed them. If there's a motion.
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Section.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Do you want us to jump to elections, or are you comfortable with?
It doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll just go in order here.
Okay.
Unfinished business. We had any articles for the City of Franklin newsletter?
Correct. So there was some information that was passed along to Lisa back in July about Buckthorn, and I need to follow up with her for the upcoming dates of the newsletter for 2024. So those will be in your packet for next month.
Next meeting? Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Serafin, for the
Absolutely.
Buckthorn info that went in.
Sure.
And then, I think last time we had talked about if we wanted to, and I'm not sure depending on the dates, if it's a January date or February at all. We had that, the SALT article, although I think it's out there on our section of the website about not being too generous with salt in the winter season. So if for some reason with timing, if we don't have time to get together anything else for an article, that could perhaps get back into the newsletter.
Okay.
But perhaps we'll have time to bring other thoughts, ideas, articles up by the next meeting, which is late January.
Do they accept articles early? Like if you wanted to give them
yes.
articles for every
so,
season next year, could we do that?
Yep. I would probably have to nudge Lisa, but I'm happy to do a reminder, and I can send her things kind of whenever, and she's pretty good about remembering, but I would follow up. So
Okay.
yeah, so like if you wanted to have a group of articles that you propose and then like that are seasonally appropriate based on the dates, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I'm not saying that we do, but I think it would be nice to maybe think about, and in particular what made me think of it was you guys had talked about the hazardous waste disposal and how we don't need to have that day because there's now a permanent collection facility, but maybe we could have a little blurb about that when it's appropriate.
Proper disposal of.
So people still know where to go with
instead
it.
of just throwing it in the trash sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reminder.
Yeah. And it would, it would be helpful to me. I just threw away the one about recycle pickup and all that kind of stuff that has been hanging on my fridge since I received it. So I think people do that, Yeah.
Right. Cleaning efforts. That's been around for a while. But Good thoughts. Anything else? Articles? Okay. Then we had the Common Council referral on NOMO May. We had a couple discussion items on that last time. I don't know if you've gotten
So I did forward the materials that were provided from MSD to the city forester over the summer, and I had invited him to your August meeting, which I don't recall if he was able to make it or not. I did not. I neglected to reissue the invitation. I expect he'll probably want to come meet with you about a variety of things in January, most especially Arbor Day. But yeah, so he did have a little bit of feedback, but it was not anything written. And then you didn't take a motion about forwarding the item to the Common Council, but that's certainly something that we could do. So there was that packet of information and best practices from MMSD. I could circulate it again if desired, but that's where that stands. So,
Okay. Would folks want to see that again, or are we willing to put forth a motion on that?
I make a motion that we forward it to the Common Council.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Marion will get that information from MMSD that I think was very comprehensive to City Council. And then, yeah, if Tom or anyone in City Forestry wants to have further discussion or review any of that, we're happy to do that. Good. Then item C is the update on Environmental Commission participation in the UDO Task Force, Unified Development Ordinance Rewrite.
So as some of you may be aware, the Department of City Development has had some turnover. And so this project was put on hold entirely in the month of September. And we are now in the process of revisiting the scope of the project because there's a desire to get more public input. A draft is complete. So there is an overall just draft of the revised ordinance. But that item was at Common Council on Tuesday. And the recommendation was that a citizens committee be created in addition to the existing task force to expand the scope of public input and then to have better outreach as we move towards the phase of adoption. So staff is going to be conferring as well about this does require an expansion on the existing contract, which is going to go back to Common Council in January or February. But right now, January, thank you. But right now, I mean, this meeting was last night, so staff hasn't met yet to look at what a revised scope would completely look like. So the consultant has kind of provided some options based on the feedback thus far. And then we're going to kind of take a look and see what actually makes sense given the capacity of the department, the city, and the overall cost. So that's where it currently stands. So I think it's kind of important to emphasize that the project is moving forward, but it's been kind of difficult. My department still does not have a manager, and so dedicating staff time to advancing the project, while Regulo and I have done our best, we kind of need some leadership to move that ahead. So we're going to take a look at it, and you'll hear more about it after we've had a chance to actually sit down and say, how do we move this forward, considering all of the changes that have kind of happened in the last 6 months. So it's also worth noting that since Commissioner Gorak has resigned from the commission, just Commissioner Sharma is on the task force. If you wanted to appoint someone to also be a task force member, because I know there was a scheduling issue.
Right. Yeah, if it is before, if the meetings are before 5:30 or 6, it's difficult for me to attend.
Yeah. So typically, Plan Commission now always meets at 6 p.m. So it kind of depends on what this commission wants to do in terms of having another person's input. But
So I have a question. Mm-hmm. Besides staff turnover, was there anything specific or even, in general identified as something that maybe needs to have more time and consideration in the UDO? Or is it just simply, the staff that was in charge of it's gone and now, because what's Common Council's
So,
comments on this? I'm just curious why the stall. I shouldn't say stall. I don't mean to suggest that it's being stalled. I'm just trying to understand, like, it's gone through a process with the people who were in charge at the time. It's about to be born, and now we're saying we don't want the baby, or I don't get it.
No, what it is that it's so that way there isn't those loose threads of where someone's able to raise their hand and say, hey, hang on a second, you didn't address this issue, or this is a thing that we have talked about and it isn't still in the UDO, or there are things that need to be updated, and we want to make sure that when we do the entire rewrite of the UDO, that we don't have to go back and redo other parts of it again. And that's where, where this has been a process, since I think May of 2021 was when the rewrite was adopted as, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this. So now here we are, November of 2020, or December, of 2023, still not having a full version to be adopted, and we don't want to have where, for example, the sound issues. That's not being addressed in the rewrite of the UDO, and so that's something where, okay, there are a lot of very passionate citizens in the city that would like to make sure that that portion of the UDO is updated and it's reflective as far as what is and is not any problems for them in their neighborhoods. There are other parts of it that will also take time to adopt, such as a rezoning map, the notification to anyone within, I think, 500 feet.
Of any property that's the actual zoning is changing, so there's kind of two pieces to that, but that's correct. There's going to be actually an overall public hearing process through the whole adoption of this new ordinance, so, and then individual parcels that might change, that will also have an additional discussion.
Okay.
That's always been part of the scope, though.
Yep. 19% of the parcels in Franklin will be affected by that. So 19% is pretty significant as far as just.
No,
how much,
yeah,
so.
I mean, I appreciate the sound. I guess, one of the things that drove me to ask that was when we did have that comprehensive overview, it seemed like one of the big goals was to incorporate by reference specifics so that you wouldn't get tied down by the UDO, right? So if that was done correctly and comprehensively, I'm trying to understand how we need to redo it, but fair enough. Do you know what I'm saying? Like this isn't the specifics about this aren't necessarily in the UDO so that you can change them without doing a full rewrite was kind of what they explained to us was the goal, which makes sense to me. And anyway,
I think there are also portions of it where when the original was, or the version that we're dealing with right now, there are aspects of Franklin that are growing and there's development that's being made that the UDO didn't take into consideration of this is what would be placed into Franklin. It was at the time of like, okay, it's a lot of farmland, a lot of residential, but not as far as the entertainment aspects like Ballpark Commons, things like the.
in 2021, that was not included in the. That was not a consideration.
I don't believe it was, because the proposal of Ballpark Commons was more of just this will be very much like the Little League fields on 76th. That was the initial concept, and then it's kind of grown from that into the entertainment district that it is now. So that's where things have kind of shifted, and where it's a lot of gray areas, and it's not well defined for issues like that, and it's not able to say, oh, well, here's where these ordinances and this is what would apply to you here at this, like
this type of
Exactly.
facility. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that answers my question. I'd be interested in the task force if you would like somebody else to join. between you. Yeah.
Do we need to make a motion, or?
Can I volunteer myself, or do I need someone?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a motion to have Amy be our second participant on the UDO rewrite task force?
So moved.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Good, that finishes off our unfinished business. New business. We have an opening for vice chair, and that'll be one person, and then I'll appoint the other person as a secretary. So, other nominations, is anyone interested in the vice chair position? The two that are on my right, far right? Flip a coin?
I don't want to do secretary, I'll tell you that.
Okay,
That's not my thing. I would do vice chair, yeah.
Okay. I'm secretary.
Are you willing to do secretary?
What, basically
Sure.
make notes or?
Yeah.
Sure.
I'll talk you through it.
Okay,
I'll do the rest for today, and then
Okay.
we can have a little chat.
sure.
all right. So, motion to have Chair, or Commissioner Seraphin as our vice chair,
So moved.
and a second?
I second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right,
Congratulations.
that motion
And,
carries. Congratulations, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Commissioner Sharma, would you so like to be the secretary of the
secretary,
commission?
yes.
All right, great, excellent. Thank you both. Then there's the other new item of creation of a combined Parks and Environmental Commission, which I'll toss over to Marion.
Thank you. So this was a proposal that came up under the tenure of the previous planning manager for a couple of different reasons. I'm trying to think through like what sort of the best place to start with this discussion is. So the Parks and Environmental Commission have something of a shared mission. They're both created under the municipal code, and they have purview over a couple of different things. The Parks Commission is enabled by state statute, and they have statutory power. They can have delegated powers related to the management of parks. The Environmental Commission doesn't have those same statutory powers, but you do have several powers that are under the municipal code related to the enforcement of natural resource features. But there is a fair bit of overlap in terms of your agendas. So I've been kind of going through some agendas from the past to see some of the things that are relevant. So, and a really good example of this is the discussion that's happened around the use of open spaces and city-owned lands. So there's been a lot of discussion in this commission about environmental protection on city-owned lands in terms of buckthorn specifically, and then invasive species management. And that was an ongoing discussion. And then there's also the role that you're playing now in the UDO in terms of land use, which will affect city-owned property and all properties in the city. The natural resource special exception process is unique to this commission, but it's a type of variance which could theoretically be executed a couple of different ways, but the suggestion is essentially to combine the commissions under the scope of the Parks Commission so that they retain that state statute's budgetary power and then also incorporate the city's natural resource protection powers into like a Parks and Environment Land Use Commission. There's some of the impetus for this is just that shared mission, but I will also note that it has been unfortunately very difficult to maintain a consistent level of membership with this commission. So this is not the first time you've been short on members by this number in my tenure. Some of that may have to do with recruitment and management of volunteers, but at the end of the day, we never have trouble finding people for Parks Commission, and we frequently have trouble finding people for environmental, and it's not because you're not doing good work. I think maybe it's because it's so late, but anyway. So in terms of membership, I think there's also some overlap in terms of the level of interests that people have. And so another example, as I was going through the agendas, was the Parks Commission will be working on the site plan and design of a city park in the upcoming months. And that park also has a lot of natural resource restoration aspects to it. So that's a pretty common kind of avenue where there is an overlap, but it would be nice to have the expertise of this commission also on that commission. And then just in terms of like staff time, there's, as you may be aware, my department is somewhat limited in terms of the staff that we have. And for each meeting that occurs, there's a level of research and coordination and administrative work that has to occur. This commission has been thoughtful about, not asking for paper packets and those kinds of things, but it is a demand on staff time that in consolidating them, it's not just my time either, it's the secretary administrative staff's time, that it starts to get to be a lot in terms of just the noticing and production of materials and that kind of thing. So at present, this is a discussion. The city attorney and I have been both doing a little bit of research about the feasibility of this, and it seems like it is something that, just legally speaking, would be possible. The Parks Commission has some reservations. They want to know more about what types of issues your commission discusses, how an integrated commission might work, et cetera. And so I'm raising the topic with you. I had hoped to raise it in October. But unfortunately was not able to bring it up then. So I'm interested in your feedback, what kind of information you would like in order to contribute to the discussion around this, what concerns or positive thoughts you might have. So again, right now it's a discussion. It would have to be a decision made by Common Council because we would have to amend both the municipal code and the UDO in order to achieve this. But I think there'd be some value in doing it with sort of a long-range thought process around consolidating some planning processes and staff time. That's kind of happening in the background. I can talk a little more about that, but again, we currently don't have a manager, so there's only so far I can go with it. So what comments do people have?
How many are there in the Parks Commission?
7 plus an ex officio member. Shelley Runty is the representative of Kayla's Playground, and because of the unique nature of that facility, she's the executive director of the foundation that built it.
Okay.
So she has an ex officio non-voting role.
Are they usually meeting monthly?
They meet monthly.
And the agendas,
Hefty.
are they?
Sometimes. So right now, as part of the overall discussion, we're trying to get them away from certain administrative tasks and towards more policy-oriented discussions. So this commission has mostly been focused on policy. So, the tree list, those kinds of things, the UDO. The Parks Commission does hear permits currently, and that creates some drag because they're reviewing things that sometimes it's necessary for there to be citizen input on it, but other things could be an administrative process. So we're trying to get them more towards policy. But then they also engage in things like the site plan that I mentioned, which is both an administrative and a policy discussion. Like, it's literally just a review of a park that will be built, but is also like, does this meet the city's needs in terms of, there's a document called the Comprehensive Outdoor Recreation Plan, It is a required document for the city to be able to apply for state funding for Knowles Nelson grants, or there's a variety of other like land use and park recreation grants that you cannot apply for without this document. It's part of the overall set of planning policies that the city has adopted, and the Parks Commission administers that document. So I'm the staffer that is the administrator of it as well. But then if there's a decision being made about how it's being implemented, they are the first discussion of that.
So when we are combined, our commission is combined, so will there be a like demarcation of what our role will be, and we don't interfere in there? So no, not.
I think the suggestion is that it would be one body
One
with an
body.
expanded purview.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, if it makes sense, I don't have a real good understanding of everything that they cover and that they're responsible for, but it does seem like there is some overlap. I would not be opposed. It seems like there might be some administrative savings. But yeah, if the scope of responsibilities, I don't know, if it could end up being too large, I don't have a real good feel for that.
I have a handful of thoughts. Number one, because they do have, a full, attendance for, or I don't know if attendance is a roster of commissioners. I would hope that what the Environmental Commission is trying to achieve and the goals that this body puts forward isn't kind of backburnered and, we'll get to that later. And that's something for June. We'll get that in May or whatever the case may be. That anything that's been brought up, that talked about, that we want to kind of forward in Franklin isn't forgotten. That would be one of my concerns about that. My second is more of like, I think more of a processy sort of question, and that would be would myself and it looks like Alderwoman Day is the aldermanic representative on that body. Would this body be one that carries two alders, or would one like give up a position, be it myself or her, moving forward? And then my other thought, just in general, would be, and I think it's just more of just having clarity, would be having some sort of, I think because of the park, more of the park side of things, of where does the school board kind of fix into this, because they run Parks and Rec, which is weird because the park side of it is in that name, but they don't have anything to do with the parks, and it should just be the Franklin Recreational Department. So there is, in my opinion, a level of confusion of, would they, if we're going to start, becoming Voltron and bringing the Five Lions together, where would this be something where we would reach out to the school board and talk to them of, would they like to have some, like in the aspect of a non-voting member as part of that commission, the super group that will be the Parks and Environmental Commission. Those are just some, and I think that those are, before anything would be some sort of like, as far as taking this to council to make these changes, some of those I think would be more like processy, like I said, questions that would need to be kind of fleshed out and defined before any sort of thing would move forward, in my opinion.
Would it be helpful to look at agendas from the commission and maybe some of their packets and the types of items they review? That's the request that they made for their review of this. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. And I can answer to the extent that I'm able to your last question about the rec department, and you're correct that they don't have any regulatory review of the existing park system. They have their own facilities, and so part of the goals that are being incorporated in the future update of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan is integrating that planning process. Because right now we're looking at potentially duplicating facilities. They're going to be constructing some things that the city has planned for but not built yet, and that's not efficient for a bunch of reasons. So I've had a dialogue with them in the past that had to be set aside in the staffing gap over the last couple of months. But that suggestion is well taken, and to maybe have a representative. So
Yeah, I've heard that like there was where they were looking at constructing disc golf, and there was another like, it turns into the Spider-Man meme where everyone's kind of pointing at each other.
Yep. And so I can say that the school district overall, they're in the process of completing like a planning process for their own facilities. The city needs to undertake a rewrite of our comprehensive master plan and our corp. You've probably heard about this recently. And at that time, a fully developed document of that nature would take into account those kinds of facilities. So the corp, it uses the same demography as the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan to sort of estimate what are the future needs of the city in terms of recreational facilities. And if we don't account for county lands, which I haven't gotten into this recently, but Milwaukee County owns a huge portion of the property in Franklin, and a lot of it is outdoor, just conservation lands. But if we don't take into account those facilities as well as the school district's facilities, then we kind of end up, potentially reproducing things that don't need to be duplicated. So, yeah, I'm going to be having kind of a more in-depth conversation at the staff level with the city administrator and a couple other people about like what this could look like in practical terms for you all. But I mean, if you guys hate the idea, please say that. So, because I part of this, and I don't want to diminish the role that you play as volunteers in any way. It's just that there is some efficiencies to be gained by potentially combining the commissions, and also some expertise that you could lend in Parks Commission that would be constructive. So, and it's really cool that you guys do this at 7:00. Like,
When do they meet?
6:30 on the second Monday.
Oh, so just a half an hour early.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
That means I'm out.
Oh, because of the time.
I have school board on the second Monday.
Okay. I mean, one of the things that could change the date is part of that could be up for discussion. I will be honest that my preference would be to meet earlier. But it's fine if not. But it would, so far the discussion has mainly been monthly meetings. Yeah.
I echo Chairwoman Horn's sentiments. Not opposed to it, but like I said, having a better definition going into it, I think would be a lot better as far as being able to say, oh yeah, I'm totally on board, or I'm not sure if this would be the right fit for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yep. So right now we're just taking your temperature on it. So.
Is it reversible if we don't mesh well?
I mean, yes. So actually, Parks and Environmental Commission were a single commission at one point in the early 2000s. And I think this split may have happened related to the Natural Resource Special Exception process and that review process, but I don't really understand the history behind it. It's gone back and forth. Frankly, there's quite a few commissions that have been empowered and then, Yep, exactly. So that seems to be kind of the normal flow.
Okay.
So, yep.
Okay, I think we'll continue to have discussion and review. Speaking of natural resource special exceptions, what does your crystal ball have in it?
I anticipate that you will have one, if not on your January agenda, then definitely in February.
Okay, that's the agenda items. Our next meeting scheduled, if we follow our pattern, would be January 24th. Hopefully that works for folks. Okay,
Absolutely.
all right, good. Any other items to cover? If not, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Nope. Good. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned at 7:35.